We're speaking with renowned East Coast Aikido master, Mr. Robert Liedtke. Thank you very much, Bob, for coming.
Thanks, Joe.
Let's start from the beginning. When did you first get involved in the martial arts?
Well, I got involved when I returned from California in 1960. I got involved in a judo class. I was pretty fascinated with judo for a while, and then this thing called karate come along, and I began training in karate. And I really loved that, and it seemed to suit me very well. But after I had practiced for a number of years, apparently the aggression in me started to come out, and I began to hurt myself every time I sparred with somebody. I'd break a finger, or I'd break a toe, and eventually it got to cost me so much time from my job that I couldn't afford to continue in the arts. So kind of in desperation, I call up a local school and I ask them, what do you have that I can do that doesn't involve sparring? And they say, well, we have Aikido. And I had never heard of Aikido up until that point.
And what was the year again?
This was 1970.
Mm-hmm.
And I went down to the school and I watched twice through a little crack in the window without ever going inside. But the third time I went down there, I went down prepared to sign up. I went in and joined, and that's 23 years ago, and I've been doing it religiously ever since.
Who was the instructor at the time?
The instructor was Insu Wong, a 7th Dan in judo. He was also ranked 6th degree in Taekwondo and 6th degree in Aikido.
Now, what was it about Aikido that drew you to the art?
Well, it's really hard to describe it, but this particular school was far more aggressive than I had originally anticipated. And I had to develop, well, kind of self-protection in order to practice safely, which of course I did. I've never been hurt in Aikido in 23 years. But the more I practiced this art, the more I fell in love with it. Just overwhelmed by its beauty, its seeming sophistication and simpleness. It's just a wonderful, healthy way of life. It really is.
What is Aikido exactly? Please explain.
Well, it's a system of joint locks and manipulations, and it's powered by this unseen energy called ki. Now, there's two kinds of ki. There's the hard ki, and there's the soft ki. Aikido is mostly the soft ki, which means that instead of being very aggressive, you have to be less than aggressive, close to being passive. Although Aikidoists, you might say Aikidoists would step back one step and then defend, whereas the average person might not step back, but we would give way one step as a defense.
And is Aikido an effective self-defense art?
Yeah, and actually it's really underrated. Mm-hmm. Because it is very sophisticated. It's also kind of difficult to learn, more difficult than most of the other arts. It takes a long time to master it, but once mastered, there's a certain grace and beauty about it that is just wonderful.
What techniques about Aikido make it an effective self-defense art and martial art?
Well, there's so much pain involved in Aikido. For instance, through a proper wrist lock, you can literally cause a person's hair to stand up from the pain alone. Not saying that you can't break each and every joint if it was necessary, but the passiveness of Aikido means it's non-aggressive. We're not the kind of people who start fights, but we're kind of people who end them as easily as possible.
And what is the heart of Aikido as far as the technique goes? What does it concentrate on in its teachings?
Well, I think really it concentrates on teaching you to become a better person, to understand yourself better, to develop your healthy attitudes, both mentally and physically. The development of this power of ki it's kind of unusual. It's hard to explain. You actually don't even feel ki until you've spent perhaps 10 years involved in the practice of it. But its health aspects are wonderful.
Now, they talk about Aikido using someone's force against themselves, centrifugal force, etc. Explain how a smaller person can handle someone who's very aggressive, maybe twice their weight.
Well, let's say someone, a larger person reaches forward and steps forward to grasp a smaller person. Now, the elements of that movement are enough to unbalance the person using Aikido techniques for the smaller person to unbalance the larger. Once imbalanced, the person has virtually no control over their body. And not only can their joints be manipulated, but they can be thrown end over end from something as simple as a reach.
So a great deal of strength is not needed to execute Aikido?
Absolutely.